The cameras flashed, the crowd, they totally froze. And just like that, Hollywood had a new obsession.
Oh, absolutely. But this time it wasn't a red carpet scandal or a typical rumor.
No, not at all. It was a headline that read, "LeAnn Rimes details family health crisis," after hinting at heart-wrenching issues. Because behind the glitter and behind that perfect pitch, a body is quietly shutting down.
It really is. The spectacle of performance completely masks a total system failure behind the scenes. We see the costume and we hear the voice, but we are like completely blind to the collapsing infrastructure holding it all together.
Welcome to Starscope Report. Join us as we uncover Hollywood drama, music industry shakeups, and viral influencer scandals. From red carpet surprises to social media controversies, we dive deep into the stories behind the fame.
And this particular deep dive is just fascinating because this isn't just about a celebrity getting sick, right? It's a real-time study of what happens when the human body finally overrides the human will.
Right. So to really get to the bottom of this, we've pulled together a massive stack of sources today. We're looking at celebrity news updates from Us Weekly and Suggest, some transcripts from E! News and TechFlow USA, and LeAnn's own incredibly raw May 2026 Substack post.
Which is really the core of all this. It's the raw truth compared to the Hollywood gloss.
Exactly. So our mission today is to piece together the timeline of these cascading crises. We're going to unpack the immense, often invisible pressures of childhood stardom, dive into the bizarre world of Hollywood biohacking.
Oh, the biohacking is wild. We'll definitely get into what that actually does to your cells.
Yeah, we have to. And ultimately, we are looking at what happens when a performer who has spent 30 years pushing through the pain finally hits a wall and says, no more.
So let's jump in. The physical breakdown didn't just happen overnight, even if the headlines kind of made it seem that way. LeAnn recently had to cancel a huge string of shows.
Yeah, it was a massive cancellation. She had to pull out of Spokane, Seattle, Waukegan, Wilmington, Ohio, Washington, D.C., and Wilmington, North Carolina.
That is so much lost revenue and pressure. And the immediate culprit was a COVID-19 diagnosis that triggered a severe case of laryngitis.
Let's break that down for a second, because a lot of people hear laryngitis and think, oh, just take a few days off, drink some hot tea with honey, you'll be fine.
Right, maybe suck on a lozenge.
Exactly. But for a professional singer, this is an existential threat. Vocal cords are these incredibly delicate folds of mucous membrane. When they get infected and inflamed by a virus like COVID, they swell up.
Oh, they swell massively.
And if you force air through swollen vocal cords to project to the back of a huge arena, you are risking permanent nodules, scarring, and like a total loss of your vocal range.
And we really have to contextualize why losing that range is so utterly terrifying for her specifically. I mean, this year marks the 30th anniversary of her breakout album, Blue.
Wow, 30 years.
Yeah, she released that album when she was just 13 years old. By 14, she was the youngest individual Grammy winner in history.
If you start your career at 13, your brain is still in this massive developmental phase. You fundamentally wire your nervous system to equate performing with survival and, with love.
Exactly. Her voice hasn't just been her instrument. It's her moneymaker, her safety net, and really the primary way she interacts with the world.
That enmeshed identity is so dangerous, though.
It is. When your identity is entirely fused with your output, the act of resting feels biologically identical to disappearing. Imagine the psychological toll of sitting in a doctor's office, having your vocal cords scoped, and being told you need mandatory vocal rest.
Oh, for someone with an enmeshed identity, that isn't just an inconvenience. It triggers a deep systemic panic.
Which perfectly explains the absolute extremes she's going to right now for recovery, the biohacking.
Yes. Let's talk about the $10,000 solution she turned to. Our sources, like TechFlow USA, detail this visit to a clinic in Nashville called Next Health.
Right, for plasma exchange.
Yeah, and she documented the whole thing on social media. She showed this very large needle in her arm extracting her plasma.
Let's look at the mechanics of what is actually happening there. Plasmapheresis is intense. They are literally pulling your blood out of your body, running it through a machine that separates the red blood cells from the plasma, and then just discarding your natural plasma.
She actually described it as taking out the liquid portion of her blood that's filled with inflammatory proteins, toxins, antibodies. She specifically mentioned taking out plastic particles and mold and nastiness.
All the nastiness, yeah.
And then they replace it with fresh albumin. But, how does pumping albumin into your veins actually help a viral vocal cord infection?
Well, albumin is a protein synthesized by the liver. It's essentially the body's premier transport mechanism and volume regulator. When you have a massive systemic inflammatory response, like a brutal COVID infection compounded by severe chronic stress, your plasma is just swimming with cytokines.
And cytokines are those inflammatory proteins that basically signal your immune system to attack, right?
Precisely. So her immune system is essentially stuck in overdrive, attacking the inflammation in her vocal cords, but also exhausting the rest of her body in the process.
Wow. So the theory behind replacing that plasma with fresh albumin is that you're physically filtering out those cytokines. You're removing the chemical alarm bells and giving the body a clean, stabilized fluid to reset the immune response.
Exactly. It's a systemic flush. But the physical chaos driving those alarm bells goes way beyond just COVID.
Oh, completely. To add to the sheer panic, there's the ongoing tooth thing.
The tooth thing was wild.
Last year, during a live performance in Washington, she was right in the middle of singing One-Way Ticket, and she feels something pop in her mouth. Her front dental bridge literally falls out mid-song.
I can't even imagine the panic.
She had to tell the crowd to hold on, run to the side of the stage, pop the bridge back into her mouth, and run back out to finish the song.
The physical toll of chronic stress doesn't just impact the immune system, you know. It impacts bone density, gum health, muscle tension. A dental failure mid-performance is a glaring indicator of a body under immense, prolonged pressure.
Think of her immune system like a flooded electrical grid. Decades of chronic stress, relentless touring, the sheer pressure of being a global commodity, it's all tripped the circuit breaker.
Oh, absolutely.
So I have to ask, is dropping 10 grand on a plasma exchange actually fixing the grid? Or is it just bailing water out of a flooded basement while the hurricane is still actively raging outside?
It is absolutely bailing water. The plasma exchange, the vocal rest, the dental repairs, these are all purely physical interventions for symptoms of a systemic collapse. You can filter the cytokines out of your blood all day long, but if your nervous system is still generating them faster than a machine can remove them, you are fighting a losing battle.
Right, because the root cause is still there. By the way, if you're loving these Hollywood twists and deep dives, make sure you're subscribed. We've got even crazier stories ahead in this episode.
Yeah, hit that subscribe button. Because we actually saw the emotional dam break a month before these canceled shows during a viral therapy session that proved the physical treatments weren't enough.
Let's look at that because in late March, LeAnn shared this therapy session on Instagram that went completely viral. It was a deep jaw release conducted by Gary Lynham, the founder of Human Garage.
Right. And this involves intense manipulation of the fascia, the connective tissue in the face and neck.
We have to understand the biology of what Gary is doing there. Fascia is like the casing around your muscles, bones, and organs. When you experience chronic stress, your sympathetic nervous system pumps out cortisol.
And that cortisol literally causes the fascia to dehydrate, tighten, and shrink wrap around your muscles.
Yeah.
It becomes this physiological armor.
And the jaw is the front line of that armor. If you are literally biting your tongue or pushing your voice through exhaustion to hit a note, your jaw just locks up.
So pressing into that tissue with sustained, targeted force rehydrates it. It is excruciatingly painful, but when that physical armor finally melts, the repressed emotional trauma that caused the bracing in the first place often releases right along with it.
And the video she posted captures exactly that. She is undergoing this intense physical manipulation, and she is just sobbing. It's a deep, visceral, uncontrollable emotional release, incredibly raw.
But if you were expecting the internet to meet that vulnerability with empathy,
You would be dead wrong.
the backlash was immediate and merciless.
Commenters were relentlessly attacking her, basically saying, oh, how convenient that the camera just happened to be recording when you started crying. It was completely cynical.
Which is so unfair.
LeAnn actually had to clap back in the comments. She said, I can act, but I am not that good. I'm not Meryl Streep.
Which is a brilliant response, honestly. But it exposes a deeply flawed sociological phenomenon we can call the authenticity algorithm. In the digital age, we constantly demand that public figures bleed for us. We want them to pull back the curtain and prove they are human.
But there's a very strict, unspoken aesthetic code for that vulnerability.
Exactly. The internet wants pretty vulnerability. A single, poignant tear under flattering lighting.
Yeah.
The second that vulnerability looks messy, unconventional, or grotesque, like sobbing while someone digs their thumbs into your jaw, society's algorithm rejects it. We mock what makes us uncomfortable.
Which brings us to the most surreal character witness ever called to the stand in the court of public opinion. And wait till you hear who stepped up to defend her.
Oh, this is the wildest part of the whole saga.
Brandi Glanville, the ex-wife of LeAnn's husband, Cibrian.
I mean, historically, this has been a highly publicized, incredibly contentious family dynamic spanning well over a decade.
Right. But Brandi takes to her Brandi Unfiltered podcast and fiercely defends LeAnn against the trolls.
It is a remarkable pivot in their public narrative.
Brandi gets on her mic and says, quote, "She really is sick." She validates the entire medical crisis. She even jokes that they both tend to get sick when they leave the country, saying they're twinning all the time.
But she doesn't just offer vague platitudes. She provides incredibly intimate, behind-closed-doors details sourced directly from her and Eddie's 2 cents.
Those granular details are what make her defense so credible. The boys report back about how intensely health-conscious LeAnn and Eddie are right now, just to keep LeAnn functioning.
We're talking strict 8:30 p.m. bedtimes.
Waking up at 4 a.m. to do yoga, lymphatic drainage machines running constantly, and apparently they have a full-size hyperbaric oxygen chamber sitting in their dining room.
A hyperbaric oxygen chamber in the dining room paints a vivid picture of a household that has essentially been converted into a triage center.
Truly. And by pumping 100% oxygen at higher than normal atmospheric pressures, you are forcing oxygen into the blood plasma to speed up cellular healing. It's just another extreme biological intervention.
Brandi also weighed in on the dental disaster, which I thought was fascinating. She pointed out that veneers and dental bridges can trap bacteria, which can cause secondary infections that mess with your vocal cords.
And for LeAnn, risking permanent vocal damage is the ultimate fear. She even shot down rumors that LeAnn was joining the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, with LeAnn herself later stating her acting role on 9111. Nashville is enough drama for her.
The irony here is thick enough to cut with a knife. Think about the cultural landscape we live in. You have a Real Housewives veteran, Brandi Glanville, a woman whose entire brand was built on reality TV conflict, acting as the voice of reason and absolute medical authority.
Why do we need a reality star to notarize a Grammy-winning 30-year music veteran's literal medical records? Like, what does that say about us?
It says that our culture has completely commodified human suffering. We don't believe pain unless it is documented, peer-reviewed by the internet, and co-signed by an independent third party.
It's sad, really.
It is. We treat celebrity illness as a performance piece that we are entitled to critique. But what the trolls mocking the Jarleys didn't realize was that the plasma exchanges, the canceled tours, the hyperbaric chamber, all of it was secondary.
Right. It was masking a much deeper, hidden tragedy.
Exactly. Because the physical breakdown wasn't happening in a vacuum. Your immune system and your emotional state are directly tethered together.
While the comment sections were demanding proof of her laryngitis and complaining about rescheduled concerts in Washington, LeAnn and Eddie were navigating a massive family emergency entirely behind the scenes.
The contrast between the public optics and the private reality here is just staggering. It perfectly illustrates the dual lives these performers are forced to lead. In April, right in the thick of this chaos, LeAnn and Eddie celebrated their 15th wedding anniversary with a trip to Cabo.
Yeah, and if you looked at the photos posted online, it was the picture-perfect celebrity getaway. Beautiful sunsets, flawless smiles, the quintessential romantic retreat.
But the reality was a pressure cooker of panic.
LeAnn later confessed that the trip was actually filled with tears and worry. They had to step away for just 3 days amidst grueling work schedules and these intense family hurdles.
And the cause of all that tearful worry was finally revealed in her incredibly raw Substack post on May 12th.
Ooh.
One of their parents recently suffered a stroke and was placed in a rehabilitation facility.
And here is the crucial, devastating logistical detail. Both LeAnn and Eddie are only children.
Oh, man. That changes everything.
If you have ever been through a major family medical crisis, you know that sibling dynamics, while complicated, at least allow you to tag out. You can take shifts at the hospital.
Right. You can divide the mental load of talking to doctors, managing insurance, coordinating rehab facilities.
But when you are an only child, you are the singular load-bearing pillar. The entire logistical, medical, and emotional burden of managing the stroke recovery fell squarely on Eddie's shoulders.
This is the mechanism of compound trauma. It is what happens when profound emotional grief collides with total physical failure. Listen to the sheer weight of LeAnn's own words from her Substack. She wrote, quote, "I am effing raw, my throat, my esophagus, my heart hell. I even have a blister on my heel. Oh, and I'm on my period too. When it rains, it pours."
The bluntness of that statement cuts right through the Hollywood veneer. She's itemizing her physical and emotional collapse.
And what she is describing is a very specific, paralyzing kind of heartbreak. It's the helplessness of watching your partner carry a massive, terrifying burden of parental caregiving while you are trapped inside a failing body.
She is battling COVID, severe laryngitis. She's exhausted from plasma exchanges, unable to speak, let alone help him carry the load.
She articulated that exact feeling. She said, watching someone you love carry so much while you're barely able to carry yourself is its own kind of heartbreak. It is agonizing to watch someone you love drown while you are tethered to the shore.
But, out of this total paralysis comes the breakthrough, because hitting absolute rock bottom forced a fundamental rewiring of her operating system.
It really did. For decades, LeAnn admitted that her entire mechanism for survival was overriding her body's warning signs.
She would perform half-sick, exhausted, and inflamed because the heavy guilt of disappointing her fans outweighed her own biological limits.
The enmeshed identity we talked about earlier dictated that the show must go on, regardless of the physical cost. But now, at 43 years old, she described this compound illness as incredibly humbling.
It's the moment the flooded electrical grid finally shuts off to prevent the entire house from burning down. She wrote that for the moment, life has stripped everything back to the studs. No powering through, no performing, no pretending you're fine, just rawness.
She finally had to make the excruciatingly hard choice to prioritize her long-term health over the immediate demands of the world. She chose not to risk permanent damage to her vocal cords just to check a box on a tour schedule in Spokane.
That is a profound neurological shift for someone who has literally been hardwired to please an audience since she was a child.
It demonstrates that true healing isn't found in a $10,000 plasma exchange. It isn't found in a hyperbaric chamber in your dining room or even a deep jaw release therapy.
Right, those are just tools to manage the wreckage.
The actual healing is the agonizingly difficult boundary of finally saying no to the world so you can say yes to your own survival.
If you're listening to this, you certainly don't need a Grammy Award or a biohacking clinic on speed dial to relate to this core struggle. Think about your own life. How often do you override your own system?
We all do it.
If you've ever had a major project at work where you felt a migraine coming on or your throat getting scratchy, but you forced yourself to power through because you were terrified of letting down your boss, your team, or your family, you know exactly how the body keeps score.
You know what it feels like to treat yourself as a utility rather than a human being? LeAnn Rimes' story serves as a high-stakes masterclass in the absolute necessity of hitting pause.
We push and push, pumping ourselves full of caffeine, hoping we can outrun our own exhaustion, ignoring the flickering lights on our internal dashboard.
But if you refuse to schedule a pause, your body will eventually schedule an emergency for you.
Exactly. Now multiply that everyday pressure by 30 years, millions of dollars, and the unforgiving gaze of the internet. It leaves us with one final, lingering thought to chew on long after this deep dive ends. If you start your career at 13 years old, and your voice, your ability to perform, entertain, and please others becomes your entire identity, your primary outlet, and your only safety net, who are you forced to become in the quiet, terrifying moments when that voice is finally taken away?
That is such a powerful question. It is the journey she's on right now.
It really is. Well, you've been listening to Starscope Report, where we uncover the stories shaping Hollywood, music, and pop culture.
Thanks for tuning in.
And don't forget to subscribe for more stories that keep the stars shining. See you next time.